The tiny filly sat on the cave floor, happily cooing and gurgling as newborn foals often do. She was a Pegasus with a warm pink coat with an oddly dreary two-toned black and dark purple mane. Still, in spite of her unusual location, a pure contentness shone from the sparkling green eyes that had no doubt been inherited from her mother. Contentment, happiness, those were the only things her mother ever wished for her child to have. Certainly at such a young age, a mother's sustaining love was more than enough to ensure the filly's cheerfulness. But what of the future? How could she justify keeping her offspring hidden away in a cave? Eventually her daughter would want to explore beyond the cave, seeking the thing her mother could not provide: friendship. The mother coughed heavily, tasting metallic ichor on the back of her tongue. She pushed her sickly blue mane out from in front of her eyes with an oddly perforated black hoof. Her dragon-like green eyes matched her daughter's in appearance, and remained focused on the quill and parchment in front of her. Each was held in a green aura as the pen slid carefully, putting words on the page. Still, the pen strokes were rushed, every thought on the page only half complete. Well, all but one. The point was communicated with an odd consistency that begged for it to be noticed by the reader. Dear Princess Celestia, surely you'll be overjoyed to hear that I will soon be dead. Please, however, do not disregard the rest of this message. First know that I do not, nor will I ever apologize for my actions at Miyamura Cadenza's wedding. I am not seeking forgiveness for my choice, but I am also not seeking to justify them to you. My current location is 746 leagues south by southwest of your castle, in a cave with an entrance lined with moss. I only mention this because I am sure you would love the opportunity to gloat while I still have some life left in me. Also, perhaps you would like to meet my daughter. I have found recently that love magic is a curious thing. When Cadence and Shining Armor expelled my army and myself from Camelot, some of their love managed to, let's just say, enter me. Not in the way that would feed and make me stronger, but in the way that feeds off of me and weakens my already wounded body. I never knew that foals had such insatiable appetites. Oh yes, I don't believe I mentioned yet, she is a filly, a little pony, just like all your subjects, maybe. Do Pegasus usually drool every waking moment of their young lives? It is rather disgusting. I may ask you to take her with you after your visit. You also don't have to worry too much about her smell. I've kept her clean, but I'm growing weary of the constant upkeep required to keep her so. Anyway, enough about the little one. As I said before, I am dying. Perhaps Cadenza and Shining Armor would like to hear that as well. Maybe I should be a little more honest. My daughter isn't exactly a pony, like your subject. She's also a little bit like me. She doesn't consume love the same way I do, but she does take love from me that I could use to survive. Isn't it odd that instead of destroying the parasite, I find myself more than willing to give my life for hers? Yes, I see the irony. Oh, she's crying again. Why don't you come and visit us, and we can finish our little talk? Maybe you can bring something for the little one to eat? So she isn't bored by our adult conversation. Or I suppose you can take her to your palace and feed her there, and raise her, and love her? Your fallen adversary, Chrysalis. Chrysalis, object, mother, and former queen of the changelings. Rolling the parchment into a scroll with her magic, Chrysalis coughs again before focusing her magic into a glob of green flame that consumed the letter. If she was the sort to believe in a god, the changelings might have prayed for the letter to reach its intended recipient. Instead, she merely laid down beside the crying filly and used a hoof to pull the little pony close. She was just about to slip into a restless sleep when the sudden sound of magic seemed to echo through the small cave she'd been calling home. Chrysalis smiled. The sound had been that of a half-dozen teleportation spells. Certainly she was not equipped to entertain multiple guests, but she understood and even applauded Celestia's foresight in being on guard enough to bring soldiers. You wanted to see me? Celestia stood tall and spoke with the warmth of a noonday sun. Her guards waited patiently, ready to leap at their princess's aid if the need should arise. Chrysalis, on the other hoof, merely smiled at the princess of the sun before replying. Certainly, we do have a bit of business to discuss, after all. Business? The confusion in Celestia's voice reminded the changeling of summer breeze, but it still aggravated her as it meant wasting another portion of remaining lifespan to explain. So she rolled her eyes at Celestia's ignorance. It was obvious now that she had given too much credit in regard to the princess's power of deduction. Still, she was not above reproach herself, so with a sigh she spoke. "The business of my punishment. I imagine it'll be execution? At first I thought it might be exile, but really, aren't I already in exile?" Celestia's eyes darkened at the mention of capital punishment. Such practices had been abolished long ago, and Celestia would not allow such things as long as she lived. Her tone became harsh, reminding Chrysalis of a smoldering ember. "And what, pray tell, would my reason be for putting you to death?" With another roll of the eyes, the former queen replied, "I committed a crime. Do you not punish criminals in your country? I'll be dead soon anyway, so I guess whatever torture you devise will be more than adequate." It was then that the small filly in her gentle embrace stirred, causing Chrysalis to suddenly smile. It was not a smile Celestia was used to seeing from a changeling. It was true that she had little experience with them as a species, but the malicious grin that Chrysalis had worn at the wedding a year ago was nothing like the expression she wore now, while looking at that little filly. After stretching for a moment, the foal opened her eyelids, revealing the cat-like green orbs to the princess. Celestia finally understood. Everything in the letter made sense now. Chrysalis was dying, and she needed someone to care for her foal. Celestia realized why Chrysalis could not simply leave the filly at a doorstep in Equestria. It was then that she found she couldn't help but whisper, "She's so beautiful." The changeling beamed. There was a strange sadness in her voice as replied, "Even though she has my eyes? I also gave her a pony name, so she won't have to worry about that. I named her Crystal Dream. I honestly can't help but feel silly saying it, though, so I just call her Chrissy for short." Chrysalis suddenly felt it. Love, real love, spontaneous and unconditional love, directed at her little pony. Maybe the ex-queen had chosen the proper surrogate mother for her daughter, a thought that had become fact when Celestia uttered her next words. Why say that when you have such lovely eyes? A flash of magic materialized a bottle of warm milk. She had gotten an odd look from her head shelf when she requested food for her foal, but was able to convince him that his career would last much longer if he obeyed a direct order from his employer. She would have to apologize when she returned, but for now there was a hungry filly to feed. The bottle floated slowly into the tiny pony's reach, and without hesitation Crystal clamped her jaws on the rubber tip and began suckling, showing the obvious instinct to nurse that any pony would have been born with. That was all the proof that the ruler of Equestria needed, that this was indeed a pony deserving her protection. Chrysalis chuckled warmly, which she instantly regretted as it drew out another fit of heavy coughing. After she managed to calm herself, the changeling spoke in her most civilized tone so far. "I figured it out. You can punish me for my crimes by taking my daughter from me and raising her as your own. Raise her as your own, and never tell her of her true origins and the monster that is her mother." Tears welled up in both the elder pony's eyes. Chrysalis wept at her own weakness, but Celestia's tears were out of concern that the dying queen before her was so unwilling to release her true feelings in her final hour. The princess spoke through the tears. Her voice was pleading, begging to be heard. The sound reminded Chrysalis of falling rain. "Please, Chrysalis, please give up your pride and make your request. Despite what you might think, you are a subject under my protection. So please tell me your true desires. Tell me, my little pony, why did you send me that letter?" Chrysalis could not stop the tears. Truly she underestimated the Equestrian ruler. She had never wept openly before. She didn't take the time to appreciate the irony that the first creature she cried in front of was one time her most powerful enemy. Instead she spoke, openly baring her feelings to the Princess of the Sun. "I want to live. I want to watch my little Chrissy grow up and make friends. I want to watch her fall in love. I want to watch her raise little fillies and colts of her own. I don't want to die before I get to see what kind of mare she'll be." Chrysalis stood in renewed defiance. She would not die here. She would fight and take Celestia's place. She would... Look down. Celestia's voice quelled the changeling's rage instantly, like cool running water. Chrysalis found herself obeying without question. What she saw was certainly not what she was expecting. Below and behind her, laying peacefully on the cave floor, was a changeling queen, curled around a tiny foal still suckling on the empty bottle. Chrysalis was silent, leaving plenty of room for Celestia to speak. This is truly the most painful of my duties, and for reasons that should be obvious, I am still unwilling to burden my sister and faithful student with such things. How long have I been? The question was unfinished, but it was one the princess had heard often enough. Celestia's tone once again became warming to the now fearful changeling. Not too long, just before I arrived. You sent me the letter, and when you fell asleep, it was for the last time. I would say you should be thankful to have gone with such peace, but if that was the case, you would have no regrets, and you would not be here. I cannot bring you back, but I can promise you 2 things. I promise I will raise your daughter as my own. She will never have a need that will not be filled. She will never fear isolation or animosity, but instead she will live in companionship and goodwill. Above all, however, she will know your name. She will hold that name in the highest regard. Chrysalis felt as if she was drifting away on its gentle tide, but still managed to speak. And the second? Celestia smiled. The warmth seemed to be a gentle spring from the harshest winter, and her voice was the same. I promise that you will see her grow and play with friends. You will see her fall in love, and you will see her raise her own falls. You will watch her grow old, and when the time comes, she will join you and joyfully tell you of what kind of mare your daughter became. Without another word, Celestia lowered her horn to touch the conscious spirit of Chrysalis, and in a flash the soul was gone, and a bright green star bloomed in Luna's night sky. 5 years later. Mommy! Auntie Wuna says the tentacle monster's gonna get me! Celestia looked down at the tiny pink Pegasus that had her minuscule legs wrapped around her left front hoof, and with a smile and a flourish of magic, Celestia lifted the young filly to eye level. Well, little Chrissy, I guess that means Auntie Luna forgot to mention who the tickle monster was. Celestia paused as her younger sister came into view behind the currently floating filly. The elder princess gave her sibling a playful wink as she leaned in to whisper in Crystal's ear, I'm the tickle monster. Without missing a beat, Chrissy began squirming to escape Celestia's magic, but was unable to resist giggling uncontrollably when the Princess of the Sun pressed her lips to the filly's belly and blew the biggest raspberry she could. She then nuzzled her daughter. Celestia felt her old memories afflict her, forcing tears to well up in her rigidly regal eyes. It was not the first time, it would not be the last. But today was the first time Chrissy noticed her mother's tears. Mommy, why are you crying? The little filly's voice was filled with insurmountable concern. It was something so pure that even in her darkest moments Celestia had to smile warmly. The princess spoke then with a truly motherly tone. I'll tell you when you're older, dear. Now it's almost sundown, and that means bedtime. If making puppy dog eyes was a skill to be learned, Celestia had to admit that her daughter had mastered it. Chrissy's eyes and tone of voice were equally pleading as she stared into her mother's own. Aw, but I want to see Auntie Wuna raise the moon. Please, Mommy? Celestia chuckled warmly. All right, but right to bed after that. Your Auntie Twilight said she wanted to teach you how to make a proper book for it. And Uncle Spike is going to tell me how to be a library. After another warm bout of laughter, Celestia guided her filly to Luna's tower to watch it changing from day to night. The stars were exceptionally bright that night, but none more so than the one that seemed to glow brighter when a particular little pony looked up at it. Seeing the brightness increase, Chrissy bounced with joy as she exclaimed, "Woke, Mommy! Crystal Whistle is smiling again!" Celestia almost laughed at her daughter's attempt to pronounce the star's name, but instead only replied warmly as she looked up at the verdant star. That's right, sweetheart. Do you remember why Chrysalis is smiling? The tiny Pegasus flapped her wings with excitement before proudly replying, "Because she protects and loves me." Then, with a deep breath, Chrysalis shouted as loud as she could while waving happily at the green star, "Thank you, Crystal Whistle. I love you too." That was A Mother's Love by Mayhew Cullen. Thank you all who has been enjoying my new content. I've been wanting to try audio dramas for a while, or I guess you can call these readings, in fact, it's just me currently. I have a steady list of things I've been wanting to try out and a few stories that I have on my backlogs of wanting to listen to. So, please, if you like this, please let me know, and if you didn't like it, please let me know what you didn't like about it, and maybe I can change that in the future. So, thank you all for listening, and please like, share, comment, and subscribe for more, and be sure to check out my DA and Twitter for updates on new stories, new art, and new content. I also run polls on my Twitter. Be sure to follow me on there to take part in those. So, always fun times, fun times. And thank you all for listening, and have a good day. Bye!